Hi and welcome to another edition of Six String Corner. This time I'll be talking to you about Andy Timmons' band and their Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album. Or as they call it, Andy Timmons' band plays Sgt. Pepper. It's exactly what you would think it is. It is them playing the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Band album. And I think it's possibly the best bunch of covers I've heard of the Beatles album. Andy Timmons and his band have been gigging and they've been playing this stuff for quite a while because they like playing it. They're obviously very heavily influenced by it. Because it was probably an album and an experience that came out just at a crucial time in their lives when they were kids growing up that had a huge impact on it. It's an album that's had a huge impact and still does today. It still has influence on musicians coming through who hear it now. It's a blueprint of, if you're going to do something right, do this. And this album is their sort of homage to the music they love. And I think that's right, most people, or most bands, and artists put down in recording covers. Everybody learns covers when they're learning to play, or because they like that song and so they want to learn to play it. But in terms of recording material and putting it out there for the public, us to purchase, enjoy, listen to, there's got to be a reason beyond just not self-gratification, but just the personal enjoyment of playing it. You don't need to record it if you enjoy playing it. And these guys have done a fantastic own interpretation. It is not a note-for-note carbon copy replica of what the Beatles did. It is not them going, ooh, let's see if we can make this sound exactly like it did when they recorded it in mono or stereo. I'm not sure if it was stereo when it was first released, but it might probably mono. Most of the Beatles stuff was in mono. This might have been stereo, or their album might have been stereo. Should have looked into that before recording this. Silly me. You can comment in the box below and tell me what a douchebag I am for not having done that. I'll take that one. But I love this. I love this album. I don't really like listening to a lot of covers. I like artists doing one or two here. Like Stevie Ray Vaughan, for example. He loved doing his Hendrix covers. I think everybody loves doing their Hendrix covers. Because there's so much room for your own interpretation in them. And Beatles songs are quite short. They're from that era of that catchy, right, get it out there, bang it out, it's perfect for the radio, done. Doesn't need to be 3 minutes long. If you make it less, better. And I think probably most of these tracks are pushing that. They're under 3 minutes, because they're from that style of songwriting that John and Paul had, well, mostly John. It's a great album. I love it because, as much as I like the Beatles, the sound is dated. It's of its era, or, it's of a time point that, I think of the Beatles much like dreadnought battleships. They were like an arms race in the music industry. That once the Beatles album had come out, whichever one it was, everything that had come before it was obsolete. And everybody else had to catch up or find a way to do something different or better. The Beatles, the Stones, the Byrds, at that time they had that influence. And then you got people like Hendrix coming along towards the end of that, you know, in that second latter part of the 60s. And I know that the Birds album really suffered, and so I think the Beach Boys did as well from that Beatles and Stones injection. You know, bands like the Yardbirds, who were very cool and very, you know, sort of, you know, you were in the in crowd if you were into the Yardbirds, because they were cool and they were different. Kind of got blown out of the water by some of this because it moved music on, and that's why I think the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album is still up there now. You know, it moved things on so radically, so far from everything that was around before. It was as much of an epiphany as, you know, Jimi Hendrix walking on the scene. You know, and Hendrix still has his influence and his admirers. But that's another video. I'm not going to go there today. That would be foolish. This will be an hour long if I do. Maybe more. I'll probably need a bigger battery. So, Andy Timmons. Andy is such a flipping beautiful player. I love Andy's playing. He's just so soulful. It's so beautiful. It's just fantastic to listen to. There's very few, if anybody else out there like him. He's got his touch, his feel. It's just magical. He's very you know, what Andy does now is very different from what he did when he first started out. I mean, Andy, if you don't know who Andy Timmons is and you don't know where he started and what he did when he started out, oh my God. You look at him now and you look at him back then, and there's a little bit of a resemblance, but there's not a lot. He started out back in Danger Danger, one of the cheesiest hair metal bands that's ever been. I mean, they're fun to listen to because they were so funny. And man, if Steel Panther haven't ripped off, you know, taken a piss out of them in any way, then they're lining them up, because they're ready for a fall. You know, that whole scene was, and that's why Steel Panther is so good. But you know, Andy's one of those guys who has that checkered past of being in a cheesy hair metal band back in the 80s and early 90s, and you know, having that moniker of, hey, I'm big in Japan. Yeah, okay, Andy. But to be fair, you know, the Far East is probably where rock and guitar music is now. They have an audience out there. They have people who appreciate it. They have people who are interested in it. There's a thriving scene out there, and that's why, you know, Yamaha and Ibanez guitars don't give a shit about Europe. Their market is the Far East, the educational market, particularly for Yamaha guitars, because holy crap, you know, there's 3 billion people out there at least. They're popping out a lot of kids who are going to go to school and they're going to pick up musical instruments, and they might pick up guitars. And you know, a company like Yamaha, who manufacture everything under the sun, that's the market they're looking at. So, you know, Andy and his fellow musicians, particularly guitar players and guitar-driven music, is still big in Japan. They still go out there and tour. You know, all of these bands, all of these musicians, because there's, you know, supply and demand. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there on YouTube. You know, people have shot with their video cameras of Andy Timmons' performances. I would recommend 2 things if you can go out there and find them. and that's a piece by Andy Timmons called Carpe Diem. Yeah, Latin for seize the day. It was probably his calling card, because I think it's his first song off his first solo album. Might be wrong there, but it is off the first album. It is the thing that he put out there to say, hey, yeah, I've done Danger, but this is what I can do. Go and listen to Carpe Diem by Andy Timmons. There's loads of little videos. I'll link one if I can. Yeah, I've got one in my playlist. I'll link one in the video box below. It's from him doing a performance at a guitar clinic or a musician store back in the early 90s when he was first trying to get himself appreciated as a solo artist, and it's just blistering performance. It's still one of my favourite tunes. It's just, yeah, I'll link it below. And then, if you're interested in Danger, there's tons of stuff on the internet, live concerts that they played in Japan and other places around the world. Although the lineup in that band did change a fair bit, so you need to look at that, look at the time period that the video's from, and figure out whether Andy's in the band or not, because obviously the cameras pretty much focus on the lead singer, and what we're really interested in is Andy's playing, and it's it's very different. It's what you would expect of a hair metal band. And then Andy kind of graduated onto a bluesy rock guitarist with sort of beautiful melodic bluesy feel. And I don't think... No, I'm going to say it. He's the best at it. There's nobody else who's better. Nobody. There's some people who come close, and he's the best. If Stevie Ray was still alive, yeah, I think they'd probably be, comparing notes, to be quite frank, because he's of that ilk. The problem for Andy, though, is that when Stevie died, that was almost the end of that time period when this music was appreciated widely. We still talk about Jimmy Page and Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck and a whole string of others. But to be fair, as much as they've done some lovely material, none of it's sold well since the 80s. None of it. Jeff gets his Grammy Awards whenever he sticks something out because, let's face it, there's nobody else doing anything of any note other than possibly John Mayer, who's modern, youthful, of a recent time period, does not have any strings to the time when this music was at its peak in terms of sales and appreciation. We are a minority. If you didn't know that, I know. I'm sorry. Father Christmas isn't coming this year either. That's the bad news. The good news is Andy's still out there making music. He's made this. It's a couple of years old now, I think. Yeah. Easy to get hold of. If you just want to download a couple of tracks to try it out, you can do so on iTunes and various other places, I would think. I'll link them down below. If you just want to have a sample listen, as always, I will put some links below so that you can listen to their video on YouTube. Obviously, I can't play you anything. I wish I could, but it would be a copyright infringement, and then this video would get pulled. So, I like to link everything so you guys can go and listen to it, see if you like it for yourselves. If you like the Beatles, you'll love this. If you like the idea of what the Beatles would be if they had a reunion, or if they had carried on experimenting for maybe another 5 years, you might get close to what this is. But this is the Beatles songs with Andy Timmons and his really overdriven soaring guitar. And Andy's one of those guys who is searching, continually searching for the perfect tone. There's tons of stuff out there about how Andy goes through. You should see his pedal board. You should see the stuff he's got set up at home. There's like 3 videos that I watched probably a year ago, where Andy gives a tour of his setup at home, and therefore, you know, all the stuff that he takes out on tour with him, and how he records and how he gets his sound, and the volume of kit he's got to do that is a roadie's nightmare. It really is. It's, you know, if anybody out there is going, oh, how can I get an Andy Timmons sound? Well, either realise you're not Andy Timmons, you don't have his hands, you haven't got his brain, and that's that. Or try spending £10,000 on tons of kit to convince yourself that you've got the same stuff he has, therefore you must be able to sound like him. It's not gonna happen. You might sound close, but you'll still be you, not him. And that's the realisation I think all musicians who are learning have to take on board eventually. Yes, you can do a cover, you can do a close approximation, but you'll always be you. And that's one of the great things about this is Andy. It's not George Harrison. It's Andy Timmons. Andy's a great player, one of the greatest, in a time when great guitar players do not get the accolades that they once did, which is a shame, because I think Andy should certainly go down as one of the greats. And if you have not heard Andy's stuff, I would thoroughly recommend it. He's got another album which is his material. Resolution was probably the last one. Fantastic. Listen to that. Check it out. He's well worth listening to. If you like your guitar, once you've listened to this guy, it'll be like an epiphany. You will want to listen to more. I've got most stuff he's done. There's still a few things I want to get, because it's great stuff. It's got to be heard. If you can, get a copy of this. Check it out on the net. You can always check these things out before you buy them. There's so many different ways to listen to digital media these days, you know, whether it's audio like this, or, you know, checking out a film, seeing a trailer. We're used to that. Don't rip it off. I know it's easy, but really, guys like this, and I said this about Paul Gilbert, I'm going to say it about Andy Timmons. You know, Andy is a fantastic artist. We need guys like this to keep making great music. And the only way they can do that is if we, as consumers, go and buy their stuff for £7-8, maybe 10. Ooh. For a lifetime purchase that's going to be fantastic to listen to and give you hours and hours and hours of pleasure. And it allows them to keep on working and making great music, play gigs you might get a chance to go to and see them live, and that would be fantastic. So I am all for buying albums. I've got about 400 of them behind that camera. So yeah, I would thoroughly recommend this. If you like the Beatles, you'll love it. If you like Andy, you'll love this. It's got Andy's tone, Andy's sound, Andy's band, putting their version of these out. That's what you kind of expect, but it's awesome. It really is. It's fresh. It makes it sound fresh and worth listening to again, not just, wow, yeah, that was great when it came out 40 years ago. I've heard it all my life. It's not new, which is kind of the feeling you have a lot of the time when you hear the Beatles on the radio, or somebody sticks it on. Yes, it's great, but it's not new. And Andy manages to bring that over. He makes it sound fresh because he gives it a contemporary sound. And yeah, it's great. I will be reviewing more of Andy's stuff. I believe he's working on another album at the moment, so as soon as that comes out I will get a copy and I will tell you all about it, and I will tell you where you can go and get a copy of this. Box below will have all the usual links to places you can get this, places you can listen to this, places you can find out more about Andy. Thank you for watching. Hope you liked this episode. And next time I'm going to be talking to you about one of my other favourite artists. Here it is. Slightly different note this time. Phil X and the Drills. Probably the man of the hour, if not the man at the moment this year. So I shall be talking to you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.